Good evening. It's Thursday evening, the 11th day of July, and the year is 2019. I'm Jerry George. It's time for this week's edition of Mek We Chat. Mek We Chat, meeting here on a Thursday evening when we bring the region together to talk about the things that we believe are important for us to discuss. Obviously, we can't talk about everything, but certainly we pick some topics that we think that are important enough for you to look at. And we also invite your participation. On the chat this evening, George Grant, as usual, Master Control. Yes, he bows. We have from St. Kitts and Nevis, it's the Dwyer Astaphan. In New York, Margaret Francis. London, Catherine Edwards. And our producer there in Grenada, Beverley Sinclair. I'm Jerry George, and as usual, it is indeed our pleasure to have you with us. There's a Facebook feed, and you can invite your friends, family, wherever they are, to join us. And your comments, obviously, are very important. Our usual other suspect, Atherton Martin, possibly will be with us. He has sent a note to say he may or may not be. But as usual, we look forward to his participation and yours. I'm Jerry George, passing you over now to our producer, Bev Sinclair.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Introduce myself again. That has already been done. So all I'm going to tell you is that it's great to be here. It's great to have your company. Looking forward to an evening of stimulating discussions where we can highlight some issues and possibly offer some ideas to some solutions, and hope that we can inspire you to take some action in your corner of the world. We, as usual, always have a very full menu, and this evening is no different. We want to look at the US beginning to round up illegals in 10 major cities beginning this Sunday, and Margaret is gonna lead the discussion on that. We're looking at Carnival season or no moral season. We also have on the menu crash landing for Antigua, Barbuda, and Barbados LIAT talks. And we also have the CARICOM meeting walkout, and one of the big stories in Grenada, or I should say from Grenada, not in Grenada, the story about that ex-senator who racked up some $70,000 in cell phone usage. So, there we are, folks. Stage is set for some excitement this evening and some fireworks. But I believe we should begin in the US diaspora, right, Catherine?
Yeah, also because just a couple of hours ago, the president issued an executive order on this very issue. So,
Well, so basically, I think a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, he had intended to have this mass roundup of immigrants, supposedly people who were given deportation orders. But then he postponed it, and he went off, met with Kim, and came back. And so now, hey, what can I say? He had to meet with Kim first.
Now
right?
that distraction is out of the way.
Yeah, so now that distraction is out of the way, the new date for this mass roundup to begin is Sunday, July 14. They're targeting 10 US cities at this point for those roundups, and those cities include New York City, Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, Atlanta, those cities where you have a large population of immigrants. So that's kind of like where they're planning to target. Supposedly, they said that the people that they're going after are people who were given final deportation orders. But, there have been reports that they may just arrest other people that they refer to as collateral arrests. So, those may be folks that they can't immediately deport, but, we'll just pick them up until
make
such
life
time as
miserable
when
for
we
them.
can. Exactly. So what some groups have been doing is, they've been handing out information to immigrants and stuff, and sort of like telling them, they don't have to open their doors if ICE knocks. They, without a court order, they don't have to let them come in and search, and giving them legal information on what their rights and stuff are. They have a right to ask for an attorney and that kind of stuff. So that's basically what's going on. It's funny though, because I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers, and she's Guyanese, and I jokingly said to her, I said, if you got any friends or anybody that may be in that bracket, you better warn them about Sunday. And she said to me that there was a bar in her neighborhood where you had quite a number of, people working, and they did a roundup there not too long ago. I think she said her husband goes there and he plays pool. He plays pool there, and they came in and they rounded up a whole set of people there as well. And she also had a couple extended family members that were deported not too long ago. So, there are times when we're inclined to think of this as simply a Central American problem or a Latino problem. But no, there are Caribbean folks who are going to be rounded up. And we have a large population of Caribbean folks in a lot of these cities, particularly in New York City for sure. And certainly Miami, Atlanta, Houston as well, where you have a large population of Caribbean folks, many of whom are undocumented. And we don't see and hear too much of them when other people are out there protesting, and stuff. But it's something that we really need to be more aware of and know what's out there to protect you and what we need to do in case, you are approached by ICE. So that's kind of like what we're basically looking at right now. I mean, I've heard interviews with some immigrants saying that, they've basically bought food and water and everything else and stocked up with the intention that they're battening down their house, their apartments or their homes, and are not going to be coming out for days, just to avoid.
The executive order today is giving, literally commanding places like the commerce and so forth to give up
whatever information. But that is a different thing. That concerns the census. Now, the Constitution requires that the United States perform a census every 10 years of all people living in the United States. It does not say that you have to be a citizen, but it requires that the count be made. And there's a reason why they do that, because the census count is not simply to determine how many people are in the United States just for so. It determines your representation in Congress. So you would find that, you could lose seats, or, you could lose representatives, or you could gain representatives, because it's a portion based on the population that's there. It also affects how much federal dollars you get as well. So, there has been a lot of talk that there's a drive, because you have this big issue with gerrymandering of election districts and stuff and everything else. And that is another means that they see as a Republican plot to sort of control and maintain their control of Congress and give them more ways of gerrymandering and maintaining their hold there as well. That whole, so he can't, the Supreme Court placed a hold. They didn't throw it out altogether. They told them they need to come up with a valid reason for having it. They didn't think that the reason that they proposed was a valid one. So the court has left the door open for them to revisit the issue. Trump gave the marching orders for them to find a reason. He was even going as far as to have the original attorneys who did the case, have them removed and replaced with a new set of attorneys. And then he decided he was going to do the executive order and put the question on the census form. Well, he's since backed off of that and come up with this new plan now that you just talked about, Jerry, of having them use Social Security and tax information to determine who is a citizen and who's not. Well, of course,
But that's why it becomes very dangerous. I mean, that is like, when you get to that level, you really have everybody trapped, practically speaking.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people are seeing it. They're arguing that it's an invasion of privacy again. I know, and violation of Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights as well. So,
Max, do they have like some legal support for these people, collective legal support, where they can give them advice on how to get themselves sorted out in this country? Because if you're in a country like for 10, 20 years, you have a right to be a citizen at the end of the day. Do they have any kind of a system as that?
well, I don't know of any.
I don't sure about the right though.
I don't know of any. I don't know of any formal system per se. Now, there are any number of nonprofits and NGOs and stuff and religious organizations that offer immigration services. And sometimes, like everything, like everywhere else, people may not have the necessary documentation, or they may be fearful to come forward as well for fear of being deported, and especially in this climate now, you know. So there are any number of reasons why a person may not have gotten themselves, situated. And, in the old days, it was easy, back in the 70s and the 80s and stuff, it was easier, particularly, which was why, for example, you had so many women who came, because they would when they did these domestic jobs, they were basically sponsor jobs. So whether they were babysitting or they were doing housekeeping or so, you would get one of these jobs, and then, the employer would sponsor you. That has become progressively harder over the years to do. Some people chose the marriage track, they may have married to somebody who was legal or a citizen, and married to them, got their papers. It may have been a business arrangement. While illegal to do, but it was done. That has also become extremely difficult to do now, because, you've had some bad experiences for some people and that kind of stuff. So it's not as easy to be sponsored. The other way too is that, people with skills, for example, technology skills, engineering skills, that kind of stuff, companies can sponsor you. But I mean, the average immigrant coming from the Caribbean, for example, or Latin America, they may not necessarily have those kind of skills that would get a company to sponsor them. So those were some of the ways that you can do that. There's also a lottery that one can apply to, which, I don't know that a lot of people know about that. But again, these things keep changing and becoming more difficult. And certainly Trump is intending to make it even more difficult. Because, he's talking about ending what they refer to as chain migration. So what he would have had is, for example, if a parent came or another family member came, they would be able to sponsor the other person, and the other person sponsor the other person. And so you had like a chain going on. There's been talk of ending that as well. So it's only going to become more difficult as the years go by to be regularized.
But it goes beyond just being regularized. I think if they continue on this mass deportation thing, they're going to be changing the whole landscape, not just of the US, but think of these countries that people are going to be sent back to. It is huge. The implications are.
Yeah. But this whole anti-immigrant push is also based on this fear of losing control, and to maintain a white America, basically.
Make America great again.
Exactly.
White again.
Precisely. That's a euphemism for making it white again. And the reality is, and I'm sure that's true for everywhere else, immigrants in this country, particularly illegal immigrants, do a lot of the dirty work that makes this country run. They are the people who pick all the fruits. They're the people who pick all the vegetables. They're the people who do all the deliveries. When you sit and you do, you place a call to a restaurant because you don't feel like going out, and you say, "Can you deliver?" Most likelihood is it's an illegal immigrant that's bringing it to you. Even here in our communities in the Caribbean, when you go to a Korean market or something of the sort, you see quite a number of Latinos there. I'm willing to bet that most of these people are also undocumented. But they are the ones who are there doing that grunt work for absolutely nothing, because even if there's a minimum wage, which they are supposed to be paid, very often they don't get it. and it's unlikely that they will go fighting for it for fear of being,
Exposed.
yeah,
Yeah.
But you know the other
so
thing you mentioned that, Margaret, when I was there, Uber. Uber is basically a lot of these
you
people.
have a lot of drivers. That's correct.
Yes,
You have a lot
I
of
was
drivers.
amazed.
People just don't realize just how much of what you take for granted here, how much of it is done by undocumented immigrants here.
Immigrants.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. That's why they should look at the positive contribution that these people make into this U.S. economy, and something should be done like that with them. That's what
Yeah,
I
they
thought.
don't care. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
my
don't
thing
care.
is, if
They just want you out.
only for one day, I was saying to my coworker today, if only for one day, every single one of these undocumented immigrants should not work. Just
Yeah,
stop work for one day,
Monday.
and you will see exactly what would happen in this country.
Yes,
definitely,
exactly.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. And instead of putting a system in place, to embrace these people,
definitely.
put in place to just throw them out.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember, Obama was moving in the direction of regularizing quite a bit of stuff, right? Especially for students. And once
Yeah, the
Obama touched
dreamers,
something,
correct.
exactly, once Obama touched something, this president feels he needs to take it apart. And this is part of the tragedy of what is happening.
No, but Jerry, remember, even back in the days of Bush, the younger Bush, there was a move to get people to come forward and be regularized,
No, I agree.
Yeah,
Totally
there's
agree.
always been a
There's
push.
always been that push in that
There's always
direction.
been a push.
But not under this president.
No,
Oh,
that's
no,
what I
no,
say.
no,
And
no, no,
Obama
no.
made specific reference, and even this president had to come back and realize it, that they were training some of the best brains, especially in technology. America's falling behind in technology, but they were training some of the Chinese, the Indians, and so forth, and sending them back when America needed the skill that they trained in America. You understand? And even Bush eased up on that a little bit because he realized the folly of what was happening to him because the people in Silicon Valley and places like that started to come down and say, what kind of foolishness is this? You're training the best people. We would lock them up, but you're making them have to leave. So he backed
Yeah.
off on that. So he's going more now after those kinds of persons who are less, as you say, Margaret, the people who do all the grunt work are the ones that they're basically going after.
And I think and it's unfortunate that Ati is not here yet, though. I think we also need to look at the reasons why people migrate. Sometimes we think that people just want to pick up and go. Most of these people don't want to leave. In fact, as was pointed out, and I mean, and I'm sure this is true in a lot of areas. Somebody cited the case of Mexico, for example, where farmers, this one guy. I mean, he was a farmer. He was growing his crops, but because you have a situation where the U.S. subsidizes its farmers, which is something that we don't talk about. So they were able to sell pretty much the same thing to Mexico, for example, at ridiculously cheap prices. So guess what? Those farmers went out of business.
Yep.
They have nothing to do. So they are part of the people. And I mean, think about that for a number of other things. So they are part of the crowd that's now migrating, and we need to look, sometimes, we tend to look at certain things in isolation, but we need to think of the connectedness, or whatever the word is, between things. Nothing happens in isolation. Everything is related to the other. You take one action here, it may not have a reaction at this point, but it's having a reaction somewhere else, maybe thousands of miles away, as a result of that one action. So,
Margaret, you said, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, now you talk about this whole reaction and the interconnectivity of things. Instantly comes to my mind is the whole question of remittances. Because Saturday morning before 8 o'clock, that was our past Carnival weekend, you should have seen the lines outside of MoneyGram. I mean, it just stretched along the sidewalk. And MoneyGram is the least of the two. Okay, I should really have gone down to Western Union. And up to today, There were people there collecting. Now, if that dries up, you understand the ripple effect on our economy?
Exactly,
And
and
even in Latin America too, because
that's
the
correct. It
amount
is
in Latin
very,
America is
very true.
tremendous.
In fact, I remember some years ago, I think it was 60 Minutes, or somebody had done a piece on just what remittances did for one village in Central America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it totally transformed people's lives. And it was all because of people here who were working, doing those very same grunt jobs that we don't want to dirty our hands to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that even the same people who make up Donald Trump's base will not do either.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? They won't do it either because none of them are going to go and face those strawberry fields or the tomato fields or the orange fields or all those other fields with all the chemicals and everything else that's there. Because one of the things that happened is that once Donald Trump started to crack down, a lot of the farmers and stuff in this country was having problems reaping their goods because there was nobody there to reap it. They had a major problem with sourcing people because nobody here wanted to work under those conditions and for those wages.
Yep, I remember the farmers crying out, but those cries fell on deaf ears as far as are concerned.
Just welcome Ati though. We see he has joined us and we can't let Ati just slip in the back door.
By the
Yeah.
way, before we ignore your viewers for too long, Tony Ben says, "Good evening to you guys. You should look at the movie A Day Without a Mexican. Have any of you seen that movie?"
No, I haven't, but I sort of get a sense, and there are a couple others similar to that has been done.
Okay.
But they're right.
And John says he's waiting for the phone bill issue in anticipation, Beverly.
Beverly,
Yeah.
Beverly,
Yes.
on this U.S. matter, if I may comment just for a minute.
Absolutely.
I don't know what U.S. law says, but I'm asking, perhaps even rhetorically, whether presidential executive orders in the United States are subject to judicial review. That's one. Number two, has anybody commenced any legal proceedings to challenge this decision one way or the other? Number three, we know that the undocumented persons may face a very serious challenge in organizing themselves in protest because they might be overcome by fear. But I would have thought that if Mr. Trump is articulating the position of bigotry and narrow nationalism, that some of his opponents now have an opportunity to prove their worth and their worthiness by championing the cause of the immigrants in what is a nation of immigrants, because many of these people who are now regularized were once undocumented. And if you want to carry this process to its absurd completion, you might just have to leave the indigenous people there and let everybody leave.
Very true.
Back up.
I know, right?
You find the most bigotry coming from those who, as they said, just land. So I would like to hear, you have 20 or so Democrat candidates. Has any one of them stood up and said anything on this matter? And
Not so far.
let me just give you a little comparison. It might not be fitting, but many years ago in the United States Virgin Islands, there was a move by the local people. They were fed up with what they call down island people, we people from the British Islands. And they wanted to get us out. And you know what the people from the down islands did? Because they're doctors and lawyers and accountants and hotel roommates and the whole 9 yards. They organized themselves and they went to the governor and said, "You want us out? We're going to leave." We're going to take all of our money out of the banks. We're going to sell all of our property, whatever we have, and we're going back home. And the governor said, man, his joke we're making, man. Don't bother with that. I don't know if on the mainland, the so-called undocumented immigrants can wield that kind of economic clout. But I think their cause is sufficiently worthy because it's a human cause. It's a humanitarian cause. And what Mr. Trump is doing can cause enormous tensions within the United States and repercussions outside. And it can have an effect on United States foreign relations. This is a very serious and complex issue with very, very serious and perhaps in some cases even violent implications. Why are the Democrats so silent in it?
The Democrats are fighting among themselves as far as I'm concerned to
so
try to get some ascendancy. And this is not an issue that perhaps for them is so important.
So while they are disintegrated, Jerry, while they are disintegrated and actively disintegrating themselves more, Trump is solidifying his 42%.
Yes, he understands it.
Yeah.
Trump understands that he has a solid base, you know.
And I'm glad that Jerry raised that point. And they're not just solid, but they're motivated.
Yes.
That's critical.
And he's
right, and he's motivating them, so they're motivated. In terms of the exec order, no, I don't know whether or not you can take legal moves to overturn that. What I do know is that if there's sufficient votes, though, they can override. I think they can. I'm not sure. I have to verify that.
Can't he follow up and veto on them?
Yeah, I can check that.
So you're going to tell me that the executive of a country is not subject to judicial review by the courts? Whatever decision he or it or they take would take?
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure on that. They may be able to, but I'm not sure. So I wouldn't want to attempt to answer that.
It's very troubling.
In terms of lawsuits, the ACL, that's the American Civil Liberties Union, they filed a lawsuit today to block that. So hopefully we'll see what happens, because what they're saying is that you're denying people their due process rights. So basically that's the basis of their lawsuits. And also the Democrats are trying to introduce a bill that would prevent the separation of families, because that again is not a big issue as well in this whole thing, is the separation of families.
Right.
So they're trying to see if they can block that. I don't know how successful they will be. The Democrats have made some noise about that, but I think they're also focused, on winning elections, and they have to. So it's kind of like a delicate balancing act that they're trying to do here. So I'm not talking about the rightness or the wrongness of it. I'm just saying, what they are trying to do. I have my own views about the Democrats, but that's a whole nother discussion.
But you see, the thing about it, these same people, they want to mostly support the Democrats. Am I right?
Yeah. So it's like ethnic cleansing, Jerry.
You have to look at it for what it's worth.
Yeah, you got to look at it for what it is. Exactly.
I wonder how many Koreans and Chinese and Norwegians they're going to visit.
Nah, forget that.
Yeah.
So mostly Latin America and the Caribbean.
And you see, the other thing is that a lot of laws and legislation is really the purview of the Senate, and the Senate is controlled by the Republicans.
Yep.
The House has the purse, but if you want to change the law, you got to do that in the Senate. And the Republicans own the Senate, so that's a non-starter to begin with.
Oh yeah, can't go
because they want to maintain their positions. They're not going to do anything to get their base at home angry, because I'm telling you, those people, right? They call and they vote.
What about public protests? The people are not incensed by this. Where's this sense of moral
I think in the beginning, when Trump first started, you kind of like had that outrage, and you had demonstrations and stuff, and mass protests and stuff. I haven't seen much of that lately. I mean, you would hear people talking. I do know that I think last week in a couple cities you had some people protesting, but the numbers have just been so small. I don't think it's been of a volume to sort of like
Okay.
create to have that
Now,
impact.
fear at this stage is going to keep
Yeah.
these guys off the road. Plain and
I am
simple.
not so sure, Jerry. I believe there is another probability that if ICE begins this exercise, people are going to come out of the woodwork. Citizens will come out of the woodwork and others will be emboldened. This is why I said this thing has potential for violence.
Well,
For the
Dwyer.
hot summer in the States.
Yeah, Dwyer. I'm kind of like I'm alternating between hope and despair on that, because the Democrats have said, some of the Democratic leaders even reached out to the evangelical religious community, to see if they can get them to petition the president to halt this thing and not do that. And there's been no response.
But what response do you expect from the religious people?
I'm just saying.
I mean, that's
I'm
ridiculous.
just saying.
The Democrats are cowards. They're cowards. They're not worthy. Let them stay with it.
And don't forget the crux of this matter, folks. The undocumented. And Margaret just mentioned that everyone is looking at 2020 to win that election. Everybody's going to be spending a lot of time fighting for a group of people, as large as it may be, but they can't vote.
They can't vote, precisely.
Exactly, yes.
Precisely.
That's the key.
They work for people who can.
But
They work for people who can.
exactly, they do, and I think, but they also got to remember though that these people do have people who may be documented who can vote.
Most of them do, I'm sure.
A lot of them have children
Right.
who can vote and who will turn 18 by 2020. These children will vote.
I put that in the mix from the personal perspective.
Yeah.
Because people hunting votes do not necessarily think things through to the end. Just the here and the now and what I can do to win. That's Anyway, time for our first break. So let's break and then we'll come back and look at something else.
All right, but Bev, before you take your break, first of all, let's see here. Somebody who calls himself Khrushchev Laville.
Russia, no?
Says Obama deported a lot of illegal immigrants. Did you know that?
Yes.
That's also true.
Okay. And John here says he just watched the trailer to that movie I asked you guys about a little while ago about the Mexican. He says it's a serious yet sideways look at the issue. Check it out if you guys have a chance. Dwyer,
Hi.
somebody named Ronald Joseph wants to know if you are related to Anthony Astaphan.
Yes.
Ronald.
Tell Ronald Joseph yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, the answer is yes. We are first cousins.
Okay. Ronald, Dwyer, and Anthony are first cousins. Satisfied? Good.
I hope he's pleased.
That's the question.
We're not going to find out. Okay.
You're talking about Ronald or Anthony?
Ronald. To be brutally and respectfully honest,
Somebody
whoever
named,
is pleased is up to them.
somebody here named, let's see here, Victorious Von E says the United States is different from the United States of America.
Really?
See the things you guys learn here? Mike McQuilkin says, how many Jews are they going after? I thought that one might agitate Margaret. But it didn't. Okay, folks, let's take a little break here and we'll come on back right after this.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply Departments and Food Fair Supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair Supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
Good morning, Grenlek Meter Reader.
Morning, Mr. Meterman. I'm glad I caught you. Last month, I got a very high bill, and I don't understand why.
Last month, we were not able to access your meter, so we had to estimate the bill. This will happen if we don't get an actual reading.
So, what can I do to ensure that my meter is easily accessible?
Well, you can get your licensed electrician to move your meter outside of the gate or directly in front of the house. That way, I'll have easy access and I won't have to deal with your dog.
Ah, Butch.
Yes, dogs can be a problem sometimes. On one occasion, I was attacked by a dog and police had to get involved. Customers who don't want to cage or tie their dogs should really move their meter and make it easily accessible.
Well, I'll consider that.
Thank you.
Grenlek, energizing our Grenada.
This summer, make your dreams a reality with a Co-op Bank Summer Sizzle Loan. Get up to $20,000 and qualify for a chance to win a staycation at Silver Sands. Go on a vacation, enjoy the Carnival season, have your dream wedding, or make home improvements. Make this summer sizzle with everything you want it to be. Visit your nearest retail banking unit for more details. Special terms and conditions apply.
Alrighty, folks, just before we get back to the usual suspects, let me say hi to a few people who are out there on Facebook, kind of incognito. They're there, but they're not there. George Vincent, Mike McQuilkin, John Cannison, Clint Williams is there. Jackie Williamson, hello Jackie. Terrence Williamson, my gosh, it's not a husband and wife, by the way, it's your brother and sister. Colvin Cool Kid Harry, and I don't know why, but I've got this gut feeling this person is in St. Vincent. And by the way, earlier on I saw somebody out there in the British Virgin Islands, Basil Alexander Fletcher. He says he's watching in the BVIs. Let's see who else. Claude Putna is there. Ronald Joseph. Tony Ben. Cassandra Mitchell. Lynette Quellis. Patricia Tellisford. Arthur Langine. Mandu Seals. All right. Folks, let's get back to the mob of suspects. And Bev, where do we go from here, girl?
You know, a very interesting thing happened in Grenada this past week.
So there, and you as
news broke that there was a former senator who was using a cell phone that was still being paid for by the taxpayers of Grenada. Not that he was the only one, there were other people who were named or not named.
Yeah, but who was the phone initially assigned to? To him?
To him.
Okay, just make sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he used to be a senator, so he was assigned a phone, as I am sure everyone who is employed in certain positions within the government of Grenada and other countries would be assigned a cell phone. Before I get too deep in that story, there was also a cell phone scandal in Jamaica, where one of the ministers was abusing that privilege, racked up huge cell phone bills, and that privilege, once it came to light, that privilege was taken away from him and all other ministers where you're allowed a certain amount to be paid by the taxpayers. Anything beyond that, you pay it yourself. That took care of that.
That's fair.
Yeah. Now, in Grenada, this former senator who was relieved of his senatorial position since 2016, because Grenada had an election in 2018. It's just last year, George.
Yep.
And he was not reassigned to the Senate after that election. So he has been outside of the Senate since 2016. And in 2019, 3 years and one election later, it is just coming to light that the taxpayers of this country are still paying the cell phone bill for this young man. And he seems to not be very prudent in the use of the cell phone, because the news which this week is that the monthly bill for data usage is like in the region of 70,000.
Back up. Let me get this slowly.
Let me
Let me get
repeat.
this slowly.
70,000.
No, not a part alone. Not a part alone. Did you say monthly?
Well, there was a period when, for 3 months, I understand, according to the report which came out, that the bill was over $70,000.
Is that collectively or per month?
That's the point.
Per month.
Per month?
No. Hold on, Bev. Wasn't I think the $70,000 is for the 3-month period. The senator's bill was, I think, $22,000 a month.
Per month. Okay, so
anyhow you cut that.
the 70,000 would have been accumulated
for 3 months.
Yeah. 3 months.
Okay.
Okay. Right, so get that, folks. We don't want to be spreading any propaganda on this show. So, that was the story which came out. But you know what I found interesting? Not one media house in Grenada carried the story.
And seriously, why not? Why think not?
I don't know. I didn't ask any of them, but none of them carried it. And I remember when this story broke in Jamaica, it was all over the place.
It's a story.
Well, I in the vague recesses of my mind, there was a similar situation in Trinidad, I think, where a minister had used a credit card and had racked up a couple $100,000.
Yeah,
it was on it.
Yes.
And that was all over every
taxpayers'
media
money.
house you could think of in Trinidad.
It's taxpayers' money. And if the fourth state cannot feel that it has an obligation to ventilate that, they should pack up. That's serious.
I love that word, Jerry. An obligation.
It's an obligation.
Yeah, that's correct.
This young man he is not employed in any capacity to the government of Grenada since 2016. I know for sure that he sits on some boards, they appoint him to some boards here and there. But sitting on a board does not give you the same rights and privileges. Employed and working for the people of the country in a different capacity.
But there's something contemptuous about that.
But hold on, guys. Hold on. Bev, something you haven't mentioned, Bev, is that this man is perhaps the biggest mouthpiece for the new National Party. He does the Hard Talk program.
Yes,
that's very clear. You go. There you go. But it's either something contemptuous or somebody has taken some kind of liberties that ought not. Because for you to have a telephone bill that runs into thousands of dollars, knowing how it's done, there's certainly is either contempt or other people are part and parcel of the encouragement. Maybe he lets other people use the facility because they know.
Yes.
Go ahead, somebody's going to say something.
I think Dwyer wanted to say something.
Firstly, George, just for clarification, you said that the bill was about $22,000 per month
Yes,
for this
sir.
person?
Yes, sir.
Now, first of all, I cannot wrap my brain around a cell phone bill
Thank you.
rising up to $20,000 a
Thank
month.
you. Thank you.
That is absolutely unacceptable.
Okay, but I understand.
Irresponsible.
I understand, Dwyer, that data was included in that.
It doesn't matter, George.
I agree.
I don't care what you include in it. That is not acceptable. That's number one. Number two, if he was doing this, then he could not have been the only person to have known
that's the
that
point.
he was doing it. There is an officer in each department that has direct oversight on these matters. And through the chain of command, it goes up to the chief accounting officer for each ministry, who is the permanent secretary.
Absolutely.
So if this thing has gone, maybe a whistleblower has brought it out. I don't know how it came out. But if this thing has happened, then you're looking at a systemic problem. And this man's excesses are not his own, but he's part of
A
an
failed system.
arrangement
A failed
where
system.
public funds and public trust are being grossly abused.
All right.
And if there is no punishment for something like this, then we have a problem.
All right, Dwyer, let me just jump in here for a minute. Dwyer, tonight I was watching the news, and finally, I mean, we were promised a statement from the Prime Minister since earlier on during the week, but that never came until tonight when one of the local television networks did an interview with him. And essentially, he was saying how embarrassed he was by this incident. He also labeled it the same way you just did. He said it's a systemic failure. Something went something went wrong in the system somewhere. But
And somebody went wrong. Somebody went wrong.
He also,
And you know who must take the ultimate blame for that? The person in administrative control.
all right,
The permanent secretaries in these departments don't understand, you know. The
Jerry.
permanent secretary is the person who must take responsibility.
Jerry,
Ultimately.
the Prime Minister did say that government does accept the blame, in part. He also blamed Digicel because he's, pardon me?
I said, oh.
Let me hear how did you
Yeah, let me
say
hear this get blamed.
No,
I'm getting
Digicel
that
using the
from-
phone.
he's
I'm
blaming
getting that
Digicel.
part of the story.
Pardon me?
Yes, go ahead, George, because that part is coming.
Okay. He said he is blaming Digicel because apparently they're supposed to monitor. I mean, if you have a package with one of these telecoms, they let you know when you are nearing the end of the value of that package. And so he blamed Digicel. So the bottom line is that there's supposedly an investigation underway. This is what the Minister of Trade said yesterday morning at a post-cabinet briefing, that there is an investigation underway, and that something that came out of that post-cabinet briefing is that when the questions started getting kind of tough, the press secretary who was moderating the post-cabinet briefing abruptly brought the press briefing
Shut it down.
to an end.
Shut it down.
Okay, abruptly. And by the way, on Sunday morning, I'm going to run both of those. Well, that clip from with the press secretary shutting down the conference. You know, it was so flagrantly obvious what was happening. I don't know. And I have been waiting to see if the Media Association here in Grenada would have anything to say about that. What,
Don't hold your breath, George. Don't hold your breath because
Tell
the
George
woman can't pay the
George
house
we
bill.
want him here next week. So no hold your breath.
Folks. I just got a note here from someone who heads up a newsroom, and
someone who what?
Someone who heads up a newsroom here in Grenada.
Yeah.
And I am told that a story was done today about the cell phone abuse.
Yeah, George basically said that, I think, when you went off just now. He said that some station did an interview with the Prime Minister. Was that right, George? That's what you
Yeah,
said?
GBN had an interview on tonight at 7
No, I
o'clock.
think
No,
Beverly is talking
not
about
as
something separate.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Folks, listen to what I'm saying and stop interpret what I'm saying. Head of the newsroom said they did a story today about the cell phone abuse. They interviewed the head of another political party, one of the smaller political parties, who used to be a part of the NNP. So
Terry Forrester.
Right, they got a view from someone else on the cell phone abuse. And that is fine. But my thing is, as a reporter, I would have gone after that story like a dog in heat.
Boy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing what Beverly's saying, and I'm hearing George comes up and he says, Terry Forrester, and Beverly said, well, they did a story and they spoke to somebody from a political party. Really? What are the rules of the Public Service Commission and the thing? What are those rules? We still don't know. Who is responsible for enforcing those rules? That is what your story is supposed to be speaking to. You don't need to go to a politician to tell you that.
You don't need to make it political.
It doesn't have to deal with the operation. Political at all.
That is why I go back to the post with administrative control. I ain't going to no politician.
Exactly.
We could make it salacious. We could make it the people who often are in administrative controls in our government do not understand the liability that they carry. Because if that matter to go to court, he has to go to.
Exactly. I worked in GIS. I traveled on government's business. I got government funds to go.
Margaret, our Facebook feed has begun buffering.
It has?
Yes, just got a note here saying that.
Mine seemed to be fine. Yeah, but as I was saying, I traveled on government business, got government funds. I didn't get it from a politician. I dealt with Mr. Cornwall, who at the time was in charge of the accounting department.
Absolutely.
When I came back with all my receipts and my bills and everything else to account, I accounted to Mr. Cornwall. I didn't account to the minister. Mr. Cornwall was the person that was in charge of the accounting department.
Absolutely. And we need, these are things, when things like these happen, this is how we need to educate, because there's too much of this concept out there that it is otherwise. The civil service is not run by the minister.
Exactly.
And that is why I am so saddened. After you've been very quiet this evening.
Very thoughtful.
I'm so saddened by the lack of training for our young reporters. Because
he has no voice.
He has a throat problem, yeah. Good to see it still. Mm-hmm.
It is actual censorship or self-censorship why the story has not been carried. And people in the media, my colleagues, they need to understand what their responsibilities are.
They clearly don't. They clearly don't.
Yes, they don't. So that happened, that came out, and no big brouhaha was made about it. I saw a story in the Jamaica Gleaner about this issue. That is where I saw a story. And the story was done by CNC, which is in Barbados, and the Gleaner in Jamaica picked it up.
Right.
So what is it that we think as people within the media that something like this should come up, and we don't think we have a responsibility?
But Beverley, listen to me. The media in Grenada has an even more overarching responsibility, since all of the seats, there's no opposition. The media therefore has a much deeper responsibility to be the people to point this out. There's no opposition there.
Yeah,
listen, folks, I have an issue with no opposition, There is no opposition in the parliament.
That's what we're talking about.
I always qualify that, because just do not have an opposition member sitting in the parliament doesn't mean that you shouldn't have or there is no opposition. It simply means that NGOs who should be leading the charge to protect this
we know.
And whatever other political parties out there with hopes of forming a government at some time, and other groups, other civic groups, they are just there invisible.
Yeah, but that's where the media comes in to bring those out. The media should be the
Yes.
ones presenting this up front, so to give them some strength. But
And
if
the
the
other
media is sidestepping such an important issue, we're really in trouble.
And then we see stories. Sorry, Margaret. I'm cutting Margaret again. Then we see stories with the minister, George brought it out, naming Digicel.
Yeah, and I mean, just to follow up on what you guys are saying, the story is not a political story.
No.
And the thing is, if the media sticks to the facts of a story just as it is
Just
not
say it.
political.
Can I
Whoever
say
wants
something?
to interpret it that way, they can, but it is not.
That's right. Exactly. Dwyer?
Beverly,
Yes.
I am not so sure I agree with you all that this is not a political story. And I'll tell you why. If people in the public service would have known about this, and they must have. Somebody must have seen the invoices, somebody must have seen the documentation, and that person must have passed it up the chain of command, or taken the liberty, being presumptuous enough to try to, but somebody have to sign off on it. Here is the deal. If this gentleman is a political figure, and it sounds as though he is,
Very much so.
just not any longer in the Senate. If he's a political figure, and civil servants who have the responsibility to make sure that the government accounting processes and mechanisms work properly, and everybody has to account. If they know that and are not doing so, it may be that they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing because of fear of political power. So I don't quite buy it, because I'm speaking from experience. I understand the politics of these little countries, I think. And a lot of times, civil servants know the difference between good and bad, between right and wrong. But in their own self-preservation, they turn a blind eye and shut up and do nothing, because they might be afraid of consequences, real or imagined. So I don't see how something like this, as soon as it happens, is not brought to the attention not only of the chief accounting officer in the ministry, but to the Minister of Finance. Because this other person who is spending the taxpayers' money is a political figure. Hello.
Dwyer, I take your point soundly. I get where you're going. What I'm saying, mostly for the reporting side of it. Let the reports take care of the systemic failure, as we called it, right? But I said this about it, Vincent, I'm going to say so through this region. Until a couple of these civil servants, like permanent secretaries, get dragged before the court and have to give account before the court
I understand.
of their actions, nothing is going to happen, because too many of them sidestep the issue and make it feel as if this is the minister. If something goes wrong, no minister ain't coming for it, you know.
I hear you.
Okay, good.
I take your point, brother.
I agree with Jerry on that, Astaphan.
I take your point, but I hope you take mine too.
I agree with you, but
I
from
just
the
was talking
reporting
about
perspective,
the reporting perspective.
on the reporting side, they could have just make it a factual story and
done.
Fine, that's good. Well, let's never forget who's holding this stick, eh?
True.
Right. So I am saying, and it is being echoed here, and I do agree with Dwyer that it is at its core a political story. And because of the players involved, I mentioned the actual censorship and the self-censorship. So our young reporters tiptoe around the issue, very careful of what they report, very careful of how it is reported, because of those realities.
But I don't blame the young reporters, you know. The young reporters are also carrying out their station or paper's position. They know if they take a story like that to the editor, they know the position of the editor. They don't go nowhere.
Well, that's why I said real or self, not real.
Good.
Or self censorship. Because when you're in a certain kind of environment, you will look at the story and say, I ain't gonna bother to do this because
Exactly. It ain't getting no way. It's like wasting your time.
exactly. So there is actual and there is self-censorship.
Yeah, I think I would also add to that too, is that some of the young reporters don't even know what the rules of engagement are for the public service.
Thank you, thank you, Margaret.
I agree with
Thank
you.
you. You know,
There, you hit the nail on the head right there.
thank you very much, because I think Bev is very much aware of the media environment in this town, and Jerry tried to touch on it. You know, when he says that the reporters are carrying out their superiors' wishes, essentially.
I know of a situation here recently where the minister told, and these are all part of the administration, he is responsible for the ministry. And nothing must go out unless he literally gives it a right out.
Yeah, and you know what? And the reason why he can say that is because the people below him don't know.
The people, they know. It is the fear of which Dwyer speaks, right? That they have allowed to become indemnity. But to hear, and as I say, until somebody do something foolish and it end up in court, they wouldn't stop. My word.
I hear you.
Right. So these are some of the issues that we have to keep highlighting, because when the fourth estate is not as strong as it should be, have the kind of backbone that it should have, then you know that this thing we call democracy
in trouble.
is going to hell in a handbasket.
Let me ask a quick question, if I may, very quick. Does the fourth estate know what it is supposed to do? Or no, I said this respectfully.
No, it's a good question.
It's a good question.
And secondly, if it does know what it is supposed to do and is not doing what it is supposed to do, is it because of political or other flavoring or whatever word you want to use?
Yeah, that's the problem.
So we have a problem in the region with an independent media?
Big time.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yes. That is a major problem.
In the region.
If you look at the structure and ownership of media houses nowadays, you can tell. It's easy to. The bottom line is not information, checks and balances, holding people in authority, holding their feet to the fire, holding them accountable. That is not the bottom line. The bottom line is we need ads, and we're going to do whatever we need to do to get the ads. So if you have to kill a story, you kill it. If you have to not make somebody unhappy, you just can't make certain people unhappy, because at the end of the day, we
go and get the ads.
Ads, exactly. That's what it's about. Now, when you come from a different era, when news was news, and you're gonna break the news regardless. You know, it was a totally different kind of atmosphere for the media. When it was insulated against political power. And the private sector, the advertisers, would put their support behind these people. They advertise with you. They give you the business. So you're able to keep things going. But now, in the private sector, looking for a government contract, so nobody don't want to be seen, to be supporting a news organization or a current affairs organization or a current affairs program which speak the truth to power.
Well, they're not really media. These are entertainers.
I was just going to make the point that most of what we call media hosts today, their focus is on entertainment. The news is down there, maybe to get some of the ads and stuff like that. So you would use the news to upset, because the biggest money is coming from the entertainment side of business. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I think that is true for media pretty much everywhere, particularly what we would refer to as mainstream media, even here, because news is kind of like seen as a loss leader. You know, I mean, they don't really make money on it, so there's no need to really invest in it. You know, you get more money from the entertainment stuff. You know, the more ridiculous you can be, it's more money you can get.
Well, I find to support you, Margaret, I look at American television, and I find a lot of the news is entertainment.
Absolutely.
I don't take it that seriously. When I want news, I go to Al Jazeera, I do my own research.
Well, you know, and yeah,
alternative media is where you get the facts now.
That's
not,
correct.
Not mainstream. It's
so
you know.
yeah. So I mean, to the people who gravitate to the CNNs, and I mean, I want to differentiate with CNN because the CNN of today, not the original CNN. Certainly the CNNs and the ABCs and the NBCs and the CBS of this world, really and truly, the days of hard-hitting journalism are really over as far as they are concerned.
You left out Fox.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, I don't know where to put Fox.
That's a Freudian miss.
Yeah. But
leave them out. It's okay.
Yeah, but what you're finding happening here, I mean, good sources of news in the United States certainly would come from newspapers are still doing a good job. The ones that are surviving, still, they're really still doing a good job of covering issues and stuff. And you've had the rise of a lot of alternative type media that are publicly funded. When I say publicly funded, doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting government funds. They may be user supported. Right. And that kind of stuff. So if you go down that road, and they're out there, and the internet too has really opened up a lot of that happening. So you can find those things there. The problem is, it's probably people like you and I that would be going after those sources.
Correct.
The average person really doesn't care, So there you go again. It's kind of like everybody's preaching to their own choirs.
Yeah, and. I front-loaded what you were going to say with the fact that the young man has not been senator since 2016. We've had an election. So why was that not taken care of? It's deliberate.
No, yes, it's deliberate.
Of course it's deliberate.
And as Dwyer pointed out, that can't be the use of one person.
No.
No, man, that's a
whole
department.
The whole party.
That is not an oversight. That's a deliberate act.
Yeah.
And it's a bad system too. When I was in government, we had a system here, and I think they still have it. As a minister of government, I got a telephone allowance. I think it was $100 or $125, some small figure a month. I use my own phone.
That's right.
My own phone. They say, okay, you can get $100 a month to use your cell phone to do government work. Okay, we have government phones. You have an office where you could do the government work from there. And so you just abide accordingly. Why should the government be buying phones for people and giving you $20,000 worth of calls a month? You're making joke. You're making joke.
You hear about issues, when we're roaming, But technology has advanced and technology has changed. So I'm not going to say they shouldn't have phone.
So how much a WhatsApp call costs?
But I was about to say that I'm not going to say they shouldn't have a phone. Excuse me. But there has to be rules, and the rules have to be enforced.
Beverly, we come into government with our phones. We have our phones. Why the government must now go buy another phone to give me and I don't have one already?
Well,
just give me a telephone allowance.
I don't know about you, Dwyer, but my personal phone, I'm not using to do no employer work. Sorry. Because I'll tell you one thing, I live in the United States, and I mean, I've worked in HR before, and let me tell you something. If there's a lawsuit and your phone was being used for work, that becomes part of discovery. Okay. My phone is not part of your stuff. I'm paying my bill. You want me to use a phone? You provide the equipment. I don't.
Okay, I understand that.
I'm not crossing at all.
I understand.
I respect that. Especially a little place like you and your space.
And I'm not doing that anywhere else because you know what? You give an employer an inch, you know what happens after that, right? No sir.
So,
you know it's on iPhone 6 or 7 down here. $3,000.
No, but here again, Dwyer. Speaking of the government of Grenada or any other government for that matter, why would they have to buy an iPhone 6 or an iPhone 8 to be?
Yeah, you buy a cell phone.
A basic phone.
There are phones that are cheaper than
so you also buy cards for them? You
Well,
also buy cars for them?
not personally, but there are motor vehicles assigned to do the work of the government of the country, and motor vehicles are assigned on whatever duties they have.
To ministers?
I believe.
In some places, yes.
Man, let me tell you, Beverly, that is such an abusive situation, see?
No,
Yes, I
this
agree.
is what, Dwyer, notice how I answer the question, you know. Motor vehicles should be assigned to the ministries to do whatever work.
The ministry, not the minister.
Not the minister.
When I was a minister, I'm entitled to a duty-free vehicle every 4 or 5 years. My vehicle, which I have to buy truly at a concessionary price, I get the concession because I'm a minister. I have to put gas in it, I have to insure it, and I get a travel allowance. It's going to be $300 or $400 a month, whatever it was. I don't remember. But I am, from the experience I had in government, I don't like the idea of the government buying all of these things for you. Because you know what happens a lot of times? People who get the free phones and so forth, go and tell whoever it is they have to report to, the phone mash up, the phone break, next thing on the phone in somebody else's hand getting used.
I just said.
Anyway, I don't want to prolong it, so leave that.
No, if people have to get phones, there has to be rules. If you're worried that your phone is broken or it is lost, then you have to be able to prove the phone is broken. If it's a broken phone, bring it in and it is replaced.
Beverly, you have to prove it is broken. Just like you have to use your phone judiciously and not run up a $22,000 bill and nobody notice it.
Precisely.
But nobody notice the $22,000 bill. They're not going to notice a broken phone because they don't want to.
And that's
exactly. That's the point.
That's my argument, that there has to be rules and the rules have to be enforced.
Yes, that's the ideal situation.
You know?
What would be interesting in this particular situation? Now that that Digicel has been fingered, I'd like to know what Digicel's response would be to this.
Yeah, of course.
Because I mean,
I haven't seen a response from
no, I know Digicel. I can, anyway. What I think is going to happen, Digicel is going to kind of back off and basically and say, well, it's a government phone. They expect they don't nickel and dime government phones the way they do you and I. Because we won't even get to $2,000, right? So, I mean, whether they like it or not, hold on. Whether they like it or not.
Let me just interject. Did you sell disconnect my phone for $3 already? $3.
It's a horrible customer, that's all you are.
So, continue.
I don't see Digicel as being responsible at all. I think it's the government's responsibility, the employer's responsibility to seek its interest and everything else.
Absolutely.
And if he had a government phone, it's the government's responsibility to do due diligence and ensure that the employee complies with government rules. That's not Digicel's responsibility.
Digicel realizes it's government, and the government sometimes lean into companies like Digicel and might not say it, but want to expect that kind of facility. Don't you hear what I say and you hear my language very well?
I know.
Okay, so for them now to come and say that's a red herring. That's just nonsense. Because Digicel is not responsible for you to look after your thing. That is your responsibility. But let's take a break. We have to take our second
Jerry,
break.
hold on a sec. You know, what you're saying is true to a large extent, especially when there are multi-million-dollar contracts involved. Hey.
I didn't say a word.
Seriously. But look,
I know what I'm saying.
The part that's puzzling, you're saying it's not Digicel's responsibility. And okay, this happened, the $70,000 were accumulated over a 3-month period. You get the first bill, the first month, $22,000, and it's way offline, totally inconsistent with any of the other ministers or officials of government. It slips by you. The second month comes, another $20,000. You ain't start asking questions?
And remember, that George, add to this, right, that the bills don't come to the person with the phone, you know.
There's what?
The bill does not come to the person who is using the phone, you know.
No, it goes straight to
The
the
bill
government.
exactly. So let's tell no foolish about it's digital for. Give me a break, too.
But you know, they got
And that's
to
the point that
way.
Dwyer was exactly at the point Dwyer was making. The bill does not go to whoever was using the phone. It comes to the department.
Oh well. All right. So somebody said they wanted to hear a break a little while ago.
Yeah, we need to take one.
Take a break.
Conveniently located in the Grandstand Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Granads will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
A natural disaster can change your life in minutes. Preparation is the best protection for your family and business. Prepare now. Create a disaster plan and make sure everyone knows what to do. Store water, non-perishable food, and medication. Remember basic emergency supplies such as batteries and flashlights. Trim overhanging trees. If trees near power lines are unsafe to trim, call GRENLEC at 237 for assistance or advice. Install surge protectors to safeguard your electrical devices against outages and intermittent surges. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, let's get back to the usual suspects. On the top left of your screen, Mr. Dwyer Astaphan, who is Anthony's cuz.
That's my claim to fame.
Pardon me? Pardon me?
That is my claim to fame.
Oh, that's his claim to fame. I'm in the middle up top there, and to my left is Margaret Francis in the Big Apple. Right below her is somebody who's been absolutely mute tonight, and it bothers me because I'll tell you, the next time this guy opens his trap, we're in hot water. We're in real hot water. Jerry, not Jerry, but Ati. Ati's been very quiet. It could be the red T-shirt, too hot for you, eh?
No, you say he has a throat problem.
He has a throat problem.
I know. That's because of the red T-shirt, too hot for him. Hey, Artie, we're honored that despite your throat problem, you found it worthwhile to join us tonight, and we do appreciate that. Jerry, suspect in charge. Yeah? And,
not in charge.
You are the suspect in charge.
You're the suspect in charge.
I just said chief.
That's suspect in chief, excuse me. And Catherine.
So Beverley say.
Catherine, burning the midnight oil, way after midnight in the UK. And then down below, Beverly. All right, Bev, you got what, 41 minutes to go?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not much time at all. And we have to look at the Carnival season, or is it the No Morals season? We're going to leave that one for last. Let's briefly touch on the crash landing for the Antigua Barbados LIAT talks and the CARICOM meeting walkout.
The last crash landing I know happened in Dominica.
I said talks. I didn't talk about a crash landing.
I heard you.
Right. Do not confuse the listener. Please to go ahead, Mr. Chief Suspect.
Yes, after enough gambage over this question of LIAT, the Prime Minister of Antigua went on his private radio station, Point FM, and said, which he does every Saturday, so he can always get news early Monday morning, and said that he had made an offer proposal to Barbados to buy their shares. Back up though, I happen to know that he mentioned that in a meeting, one of the meetings, I think the last meeting they had to discuss there. And Prime Minister Murphy said to him at that point, put that in writing. So he did. Then he started to scream that he had sent it and he hadn't heard anything, la 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 la. Barbados then dropped last week, the week before, that they have been trying to get Antigua to come to the table. And they cannot even get a date. By the start of that week, the Monday, Antigua was flying into Barbados. They flew into Barbados, and it didn't seem that the meeting lasted 2 hours. Why? Because Antigua wants to buy LIAT shares, but buy Barbados' shares, but leave Barbados with the $100 million debt. And Barbados say, who ain't keeping so? And from all appearances, those stocks doesn't seem that they will ever go anywhere. Yes, Margaret, I see that puzzled look, but that is what it is. I thought you were going to negotiate, and your negotiation must, of necessity, take in all of it. It's a business deal, right? But here's what the key thing is. When they had the first meeting of the shareholders over LIAT, Prime Minister Mia Mottley told them she had until, it was the end of the month? It was the end of the month. She had until the end of the month for them to make a decision. Because at the first of the following month, she was going to be in an IMF program. And they had better speak now or forever hold their peace. But she also told them in that meeting, they will have to sell 3 of the planes because she wants to pay down her commitment to the CDB, because the CDB has offered some relief to Barbados in Barbados' fiscal problem. But they have said to Barbados, we're not going to unlend that to you until you take care of your original debt. So here's Antigua, and Antigua knows that. They go to buy Barbados shares, but doesn't want to deal with the debt, which they were told up front is what Mia Murphy is concerned about. This is not my own thing on this. I think that LIAT is really going to see its final there. I believe so. Because, in fact, even if Antigua had purchased Barbados' share, that would not have changed the position of LIAT. All right? It's like 2 people with life jackets, and they exchange them. It would not have changed the position of LIAT, because LIAT really wants capitalization and a whole new model. If the Prime Minister of Barbados continues to insist that she wants $100 million and that they will have to sell 3 aircraft, LIAT's final days, I think, could very well be numbered. But that's where we are.
But I thought all along that this thing between Antigua and Barbados was done and dusted, and it's just put one sign on the dotted line, and things move along.
Mm-hmm. That is how we are made to feel. That is how we were made to feel, and we were made to feel also that it was Barbados kind of standing in the way. I tell you, the meeting ain't last for 2 hours.
You see, so I didn't know there had to be negotiations again.
Mm-hmm.
based on the reports that came out, especially out of Antigua, Prime Minister Martin did not exactly deny, she just said, right, she would speak.
In her parliament. That's
right. So, as someone listening and following the story, I said, okay, this thing is done and dusted. We're just waiting for it to sign on the dotted line. I even saw this very interesting article about LIAT, we're always having acronyms for LIAT. So this latest one which came up was something like to leave in reference to the agreement that you can leave anytime. So I don't know if only these people would tell the taxpayers and the people who have to pay the bills exactly what is going on. We would not have so much confusion in our region.
Okay, forget one important sticking point. Barbados is insisting that any Bajans who work for LIAT will not be
sacrificed.
Yes. And apparently, what I found amazing about that story is that because apparently they were now saying, well, we are now the major shareholders, so this is one of our things that we want all the workers there. But when Barbados was a major shareholder, Antigua has for all the years had the biggest share of the employment. So how could you not understand that? But apparently that was one of the gross sticking points.
Jerry, that request or demand by Barbados is totally out of order. Barbados cannot Barbados cannot expect a potential buyer of its asset to guarantee that every Barbadian who works for the company will be retained. Antigua can't guarantee that. It can't. It has a reason. It has a reason.
You see,
and let's isolate this point.
Yeah,
let's not think of this in relation to anything else. You're doing an agreement to buy a company from me. And I am demanding that you guarantee me that all of my workers based in Kingstown will be retained. How can you run a business like that?
Well, we might not say all. Let's not stick on the all side of it. But here's the other point of it.
But it says so in the press release.
Yes, it says in the release, but you know how that goes. But here's the point I think that is more important, Dwyer, is that Barbados was not going to sell all of their shares, They were going to sell a portion of their shares, and part of the agreement could have said that. There's nothing wrong with that business.
Right.
If they were going to sell out all of their shares, then perhaps what you're saying would work. But I could say, okay, I'll sell you a portion of my shares. I'll maintain, because the fact that I maintain so means I have a responsibility. But here's what goes with that portion of responsibility.
What they did say was, not at the expense of staff from Antigua and Barbuda. So that's why they use the word sacrifice.
Right.
But again, if Antigua and Barbuda has the majority share, now we all know that it is overloaded with staff in Antigua. And if Antigua finds the money, maybe it will rain money into Antigua so they could buy LIAT. I don't see how that could happen unless China lends them the money, or somebody is behind that, somebody with large money. And when people come into these little islands with large money, they take control of the politicians as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that said, it cannot be a prudent business practice to have more staff than you need, or more inventory than you need, or more anything than you need, and debt, whatever the business is.
Absolutely.
But you cannot tell the buyer. I mean, who is going to make that decision that you're sacrificing people? That's not the main point.
Let me interject here. I have a serious problem with companies when they are being sold and trying to sell the employees with the company. If you're selling the company, wind up your relationship with the employer, and if the new owner of the company wants to hire back any of those employees, they hire them under their terms and conditions.
Right.
It's especially in the Eastern Caribbean where a company is being sold, and part of the condition is that you have to buy the staff, slavery finish long time.
No. I don't think, no, this is not the same thing. This situation is different, and I'm putting on totally my business hat. The company is not being sold. A portion of interest in the company. I don't think outside.
Control is being sold, Jerry.
Right, control.
Well, control of the companies, that's all you need to run the company.
I hear you, but that is nothing to say that you say, fine, I am keeping this portion, and this is how I want
to. Let me ask you this, Jerry. Let me ask you this. If that clause...
The staff are not part of the assets. They are not part of the shares. So when you're selling your shares, you can't sell staff.
You can't sell staff, yeah.
Jerry, put on your legal hat now. Put on your legal hat. You just have one hat. You sell the company to me, and we have a provision in the agreement that Barbados staff will not be sacrificed, okay, for Antigua staff. I buy the company, I sign. I'm Antigua, you are Barbados. I buy it. We lay off some Barbadian staff. What are you going to do, sue me?
No, you can't.
Oh, so that's a waste of time.
No, I hear that, but
yeah, that's
remember we have precedents in this. And this is the point I want to make. That when how much years ago? 5 years ago, when they talked about moving the base to Barbados, you remember the plans up by the Prime Minister of Antigua? You remember?
Go ahead.
And that's why I'm saying that in the Caribbean, we need to do business like business.
I agree.
That is why we find ourselves in this kind of conundrums, right? Because when Barbados says, fine, we are the major shareholder, let's move the base to Barbados. The same Gaston won't kick up like a donkey. And Barbados is back. What the former Prime Minister named it? What did he name?
Baldwin Spencer.
Not Spencer. No. Barbados. The last one.
Thompson or Rendell Stewart. Frondell Stewart.
Tough. I suspect it's based on that why Barbados was holding that. I mean, legally you might say they have a leg to stand on, but you have to understand the history. Because LIAT is not run like any other business organization, as far as I'm concerned.
No, Jerry, Mayor Motley, through her spokespersons and negotiators, has to say what is said here. We want our workers protected.
Yeah.
But Mayor is accused. She's a very bright person. She's a very distinguished lawyer. So she would know that enforcing that would be, like snow falling in Kingston tonight. That ain't gonna happen.
No, snow only falls in CARICOM.
If Mayor,
not Kingston.
If Mayor really wants to get Barbados out of this, then sign the deal and sell the company to sell the amount of shares to Antigua, including the 100 million. Let Antigua do an arrangement with the CDB to pay off maybe 10 years in $10 million bits or whatever the case may be, and get out of it. Forget this thing about staff and so.
No,
Antigua has a big brother behind them. They have some big money behind them.
Hold on, you stop there.
Okay.
Antigua, hold on. Antigua wants to buy LIAT. Antigua wants to buy the Bank of Nova Scotia. Antigua wants to buy 41% shares in Digicel. And Antigua is putting up is funding a new university. You tell me which country.
And Antigua doesn't pay its dues to UE.
I gone.
But let things happen. Let things happen.
That is reality.
And I don't have to pay any money into the CDB fund, the CARICOM Development Fund, yes. I don't have to pay any money into that either. So, but they want to buy, let them buy. What are you worrying up your head for?
Under the CDB fund, isn't Antigua one of the LDCs?
The LDC, man. Antigua's the LDC.
Yes.
It's based on whether you're disadvantaged as a result of the rules and the regulations. And I think that may be going beyond the parameters that were originally set for it.
Absolutely.
Because it is for a disadvantaged person person who is disadvantaged as a result of the treaty. But the LDCs are no longer LDCs in the context of CARICOM. The smaller islands more developed than the bigger ones.
There are no LDCs in CARICOM anymore.
Anyway, that's another matter.
You have an LDC now who has a seat on the United Nations that costs millions of dollars. What kind of LDC are they talking about?
And you have another LDC spending $72 million to run an election campaign.
Who
Yeah,
and the one you just pointed out who buying up everything in sight and want to say you're an LDC. Really?
Right.
Not even Trinidad could take that place, that kind of stroke nowadays.
When you look over on the other LDC where tourism is booming, they start exporting agricultural crops.
No, this can't be a switch, seriously, because somebody think we're stupid.
We need to redefine LDC and for our...
Oh, yes, of course.
No, but what I found amazing, right?
Wait, Jerry, for the viewers who probably get lost along the way and don't know what we're talking about, we have segued from LIAT and its Antigua, Barbados debacle. And we're looking at CARICOM relations now in general and what happened in the last CARICOM meeting where Jamaica got up and said, I am not putting any more money into this Caribbean Development Fund. It was set up for the so-called LDCs, which are the lesser developed countries. And the MDCs, the more developed countries, are supposed to put a certain amount of money into this fund. As far as CARICOM goes, when that was designed, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, those were the MDCs. So they were supposed to be putting money into this fund so that everybody else can pay for whatever disadvantage would come their way when CSME is implemented. Good, now we can continue.
No, what I was going to say in terms of that whole thing is that when that concept of MDCs and LDCs came up back in the days of, that he's always talking about him, economists.
Yes.
Can't get it. But anyway, there was so much objection to it. There was so much objection to the concept of LDCs and MDCs. To come back and hear CARICOM itself using it as a premise, I find that absolutely amazing. People objected to that whole thing, you know. There was so much talk that no, we can't be moving on this business of MDCs and LDCs, you know, to stay derogatory.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just think sometimes we make issues out of things that are not necessary. You understand? I mean, the reality is, I guess it all depends on how somebody uses something. But the reality is that some people were more developed at a particular point in time than others were. So it's correct to say somebody is more developed and someone is less developed. Doesn't mean that you're better than the other person. It just means at a particular stage in development, one is ahead of the other.
No, I am not. I'm with you. Right. I'm just speaking to the issue of how it was treated. It was.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. People need to get out of these things and start looking at things objectively.
Margaret, that's exactly why you can't have LDCs and MDCs. Because development is a process.
The process, exactly.
Today, this one may be ahead of that one, and tomorrow, the script flip. So, you have to go back and rewrite another treaty to say you are no longer LDC, you're no MDC, and this one has become an LDC. It's ridiculous. You just don't need those kind of classifications when you are implementing a treaty for cooperation and trading and integration. You just don't. And these are the barriers that we put up when we claim that we're going for integration and we want freedom of movement, and freedom of trade, and freedom of this. And at the very same time, we put up these barriers to prevent it happening.
Because if you go back to those days, that thing had its serious implication about the whole question, the movement issues, the money issue. There's certain things that the LDCs didn't have rights to because of the MDC. And that is why I am finding it amusing that they have actually embraced the term. I don't know. I don't know.
Right, but Jamaica got up in the meeting and left and said, we're not participating in this, you're wasting your time. Because apparently since back in 2015, Jamaica had said, we are not going to be putting any money into this fund. And come 2019 now, the other countries are trying to hold Jamaica to continue putting money in the fund when they have stated, and according to the Prime Minister, I haven't seen the record, but he said it's on the record that they will not be continuing as part of that.
And it was an agreement made in 2015.
Right.
That he claims. I haven't seen that. So then why are the other people putting money in? If one person is not putting the other
Jamaica. No. Jamaica claimed that because of Jamaica's fiscal position.
So the other countries don't have fiscal positions as well?
No.
Barbados has a fiscal position?
Hold on. But that's what I said back then. He's talking about Jamaica's position back then with an IMF program. You see, you have to get the context.
No, I hear all of that, but I'm sorry. I have a problem with these arguments.
I get you, but Mia Maki is doing the same thing on LIAT. When she said, you all have up until the 30th, which month it was? It was March, or whenever it was. After this, I can't do it. This is the same exact situation being played out then.
So good. So then take the fund and give back Trinidad their $20 million.
Well, maybe you have to do that.
So, who is supposed to give back Trinidad the $20 million?
Well, wherever the $20 million went. Where is Kamala when I need her?
Jamaica. Listen, Jamaica would not have got that money.
That's the ATM. What's wrong with you?
You know? So maybe St. Vincent and St. Kitts and Dominica would have drawn down on this money. We don't know. These are the things that do with taxpayers' money. And we have
exactly. We would not have known all of this if the Prime Minister of Jamaica didn't walk out. We would not have.
We would not have known.
Well, Jerry, I am not sure he walked out.
He went to his room.
Well, I was told by somebody who was at the conference, and somebody not from St. Kitts Nevis, that the Jamaica delegation had booked their tickets to return to Jamaica at that time, for that time. And so they were leaving the meeting to fly to Jamaica. Now, it could very well be, and I told the person that when I was told what I was told, it could very well be that Jamaica knew that the matter would come to the table for discussion, and they knew that they would not be interested in having that discussion, so they planned their travels accordingly. But I am told that the news report that Jamaica essentially huffed and puffed and walked out of the meeting is not an accurate representation of what happened. But it may be true that they planned to leave early because they didn't have any appetite to discuss the matter.
Did you hear that? Did you hear also that Mia Maki went up to his room to try to coax him to come back into the meeting?
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that in numerous reports as well.
I didn't hear that. But again, it doesn't mean it happened, and it doesn't mean what I said happened. I'm just telling you what somebody who was present told me. What somebody who was present told me. Jamaica clearly is not interested in putting any money into it. The whole of this CARICOM thing needs to be rationalized and brought into relevance, just like everything else. They go and they have these meetings and they get very little done, and it's moving very, very sluggishly, and we're so slow that we're behind the times, and people are concentrating on their local electoral opportunities and so forth, and a lot of this work doesn't get done. By my understanding, this fund was created to help countries, members, or regions, sub-regions of the region, who were disadvantaged from one or other of the CARICOM arrangements. And so this fund will be there to help them. I am told it is being abused and used for purposes outside of that, and that St. Kitts and Nevis is one of the beneficiaries of that abuse, if you want to use the word.
I thought you just going to say one of the abusers. I mean, nice one, but
Yeah, one of the abusers, but they can't get permission. They can't take up the money. Somebody has to give it to them. And you have people who operate and manage the fund, and there's a process. The whole thing needs to be revisited, and we have to find ways to put contingency money in place to help members. But we also have to realize that just about every member of CARICOM is in financial and economic and fiscal difficulty.
Correct.
We have to understand the reality of the situation and then cut our cloth accordingly, and not just for the moment, but on a sustainable basis. The formulas we are using don't keep us relevant. And the conversation we are having is not focused on solving problems on a regional basis. So, this is, again, hopefully another opportunity for us to get really focused, laser focused on what we have to do, because we're missing out on the impact we can have on the world positively as a region with all these little fighting that is taking place.
Absolutely. And while the little fights are taking place, we have big fights taking place all over the region. We have become a people of fights.
That's right.
And with the fight come no holds barred.
Right.
You know, you look at the carnival season in the various countries, and almost every country in the Eastern Caribbean especially has had its carnival for generations. I think Jamaica is the newest to the carnival, just started maybe about 20 years ago or somewhere there. And it's still not very popular among the masses in Jamaica. It's still seen as an uptown thing. In the Eastern Caribbean, including Trinidad, Barbados, everybody participates in carnival at some level, one way or the other. But I have noticed that carnival now is all about fetting, going half naked, dancing in some of the lewdest manners that you can find. And there is a general acceptance of this kind of behavior now, where people defend and excuse it. And this is a kind of society I'm seeing that I'm wondering what is being put in place for the next generation. That is one of the things I'm looking at. And I'm also wondering, what are the types of homes that produce a woman, a man, a young woman, a young man, who would be on a boat, gyrating in the most disgusting of gyrating in the most disgusting of manner. The woman up against the rail of the boat with her legs up in the air. The young man carrying on with gymnastics between her legs. And they say it is dancing. And you have people who defend that and say it's okay, they're having fun, they're petting. What type of home produces those kind of young people? What kind of home produces the people who defend that kind of behavior? What kind of generation we're producing? If this is what is happening for fetes and for carnival and the rest of it, years from now, 10 years from now, what are our societies going to look like? Because those of us sitting here, we all know it's not going to stop within the boundaries of carnival. It's going to spill over, and we see it spilling over into every single aspect of our society. 10 years down the road, what are we going to look like as a people? I'm not even going further than 10 years, even 5 years down the road. We continue on this path, we continue on this trend. You're going to go out the road dressed properly, and somebody going to look on you as if you come from Mars. All of a sudden, morality is subjective. all of a sudden morality is colonialism. All of a sudden, who can tell you that your standard is higher than my standard? As if we are all supposed to decide for ourselves what is okay and what is good and right and proper, as if there is no standard. Because, you know, the God that we are supposed to serve all of a sudden is a white man God, and is the same God that they bring here to enslave us. The same God who created the world. For those who don't believe in God, too bad is their funeral. For those who believe there is a God, he created the world, he created us. But all of a sudden is a white man God who was brought here and taught to us, enslave us. You know? And these are the kinds of things we're telling our children and telling our young people. So because of that, hey, you shouldn't go on the road dressed like that. Says who? Who can determine how I should dress? You know, what makes your standard and your morality any better or any higher than mine? Okay, so you want to look like that, I want to look like this. And that is the kind of thing that is happening out there, and people are defending it. The young woman who was involved in that act, which was recorded and disseminated on social media, George, I heard the owner of the saying that the woman actually went to the police with the pants she was wearing to show the police, to tell the police that she was not doing what people said she was doing. Because look at the pants, it has no holes. You know? And the police should go and find the person who did the recording and charge them.
For what?
For recording her and her partner.
Oh, okay.
In their dance routine. You know, and I am sitting and saddened by the society, the fact that we have brought everything down. We talk about morality being subjective. Now we make everything subjective so that people can justify the lewdness and the lawlessness. And we just don't even think of our children or think of the future. I think of the kind of societies we're creating. I saw one of my good friends on Facebook, he said, Lord, stop the world, I want to get off. And I can understand exactly where that kind of frustration comes from. It is scary when you look at what is happening. How are we going to fit in with the rest of the world when all we do is decide what makes us feel good and how we want to behave and we want to get on bad and all the rest of it?
I'll say this, right? This last Carnival season shook me for more reasons than one, all right? But one of it is the fact that, see, Vincent, when we moved Carnival into June, July, it was billed as 10 days of mass and music in the July sun. We have had in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the last over a month Carnival in practically every constituency has had its own carnival, right? So we've had a period of about a month and a half of nothing but carnival. Now, the question I ask on these issues is how are we paying for this? And that's why I said to you, I mentioned earlier, on Saturday morning, before 8 o'clock, the lines outside MoneyGram was like this. Because we cannot afford, not even Trinidad has carnival to that degree. Trinidad, the home of carnival. And somebody needs to stop and say, this is not making any sense anymore. So you have those, and then you have these $200 and $300 and $400 parties. Some of them have two per night. When you get to the real carnival, it ain't there. So we have to actually stop and ask ourselves, what is really happening? Now, in the case of Indians, one of the things that created some discussion is the youngsters on Juve morning went upon the cenotaph, the statue which represents the World War II, and they had their own party there. There were people defending that. Now, my view on these issues is this, right? There has to be somewhere where the public good and what is good for the public is maintained. Everybody in our society cannot do what is right in their own eyes, and the rest of us shut up. Otherwise, just pack up the society. And that is the problem I have. That people are defending stuff based on if I feel good, do it. There has the Senator area is an enclosed area. It has nice exhorers and the rest. People jump up and down all the mash it up. I heard a person who sits in Parliament say, "Oh, the biggest insult of that is a white man image." And I had to say, for the black man's image, these people who did that have no respect for whether it was a black or white. I must stop them kind of defense. The important thing is that's a public good, and people, our young people, must be taught to respect these things. Our society today seems to think, do what you like. Everybody has a right to do what they like. That's where we're headed.
No respect. No respect for history and no respect for the very culture we're talking about. Because what is parading the streets these days and talking about culture bears no resemblance to the origins and the foundations of what made Caribbean societies. We have lost it, and you talk about your minister. There was one minister here who was also excusing that act. Someone who's
a minister,
a senator who has a ministerial portfolio, excuse it. Oh, they were not doing what people said they were doing, So that makes
he been there?
Well, whether he was there or not, he excusing it. And you do not hear public official or anyone you would expect as an authority figure. And again, I have to talk about the NGOs, all of these rights groups and these various organizations who come out and make noise when it's convenient to them. You don't hear them speaking to these social issues that are destroying our societies because all of a sudden morality is subjective. There is no standard, none.
Everybody gone quiet though.
No, Jerry said our young people must be taught. The question is, they must be taught by whom?
No, we failed them. Our generation failed them.
Exactly. We don't.
And I will always say that.
The moral and ethical compass of the region has been sacrificed on the altar of the life of materialism and instant gratification and selfishness and self-centeredness. This is part and parcel of the capitalist mentality and the blind consumeristic mentality that is an essential ingredient in the capitalist setup. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not preaching communism. What I'm telling you is we have become, if you will, victims of an economic system which has contaminated the human fabric of the region. For example, every public holiday in the United States is a reason for them to have a sale. Black Friday, White Friday, Green Friday, Whit Monday, whatever. Margaret Friday, Beverley Monday, whatever. Prom, everything is a reason to spend money. And you have the media blasting your mind and getting you to feel you have to spend this money and buy this and get that. You don't have the means to get it by your work or by your training or your skills. So you break the moral compass and you get what you want, so you could go to the fete on the beach that say you have to wear white and pay $300, or if you want to go VVIP, you pay $700. And you give yourself now a chance to parade and say, I am free to do as I like. I could be a VIP for a night. But you're becoming that VIP out of somebody else's pocket and compromising your integrity along the way. Our integrity has been compromised. The political directorate and the business community have been part and parcel of the breaking of the moral compass. And Carnival is a reason for some people to make money. And you say, well, I'm spending $1,800 on the costume. And if you're spending more and more on less and less cloth, because pretty soon in Trinidad they're painting the bodies. They're painting nakedness. And this is your chance now to be on parade. We had a situation here, not the last carnival, the one before. Two young ladies were on the top of a truck with a band. And somebody videoed them. One was performing an act on the other. During the middle of the carnival parade, high day. None of them was prosecuted for obscenity in a public place.
That's the problem.
So our institutions are compromised, our leaders are compromised, our parents are compromised. What do you expect to happen in a carnival, Beverly, but what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Somebody has to bail the cat, and there's no leadership in the region.
No.
There's no leadership.
That is why I asked the question, I said, what type of homes produce these young people who go out there and behave in the way they do? And
there is no specific profile for the home that produces such a child. Nearly all the homes doing it.
No, I am not
talking about
Christian and non-Christian alike.
Listen, I am not talking about no economic profile, you know. I am not talking about where these homes are, you know.
Okay.
Whether they live uptown, downtown, or anywhere in between is the same kind of home produce a young person who is gonna go out there, cup up himself on top of a boat.
And whatever good the home tries to do with the child, the home has to contend with a contaminated society.
Just trying to undo it. But we have to stop.
It's a Sisyphean task.
And I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we gone 1 minute past them, and George is just sit there smiling. Like Tim. Folks, listen, thank you very much once again for another stirring edition of Mek We Chat. Unfortunately, Ati has been with us, but he has a voice problem, so he has not been able to participate. But I'm sure his spirit has energized us being there. To George, once again, thanks for hosting us. And to all of the suspects, thank you so much. And to those of you who are on Facebook, George, Ati gives us the royal waves. To those of you who are on Facebook and participated, we greatly appreciate it. Spread the word. Got lots more to talk about. Join us next week, God willing, for another edition of Mek We Chat.